Here's what's coming up on Inside City Hall tonight.
This is not just about immigration policy. This is about a blatant, dangerous abuse of power. This is about a rogue federal agency that's been unleashed on the American streets for the sole purpose of creating chaos, carnage, and fear.
Governor Hochul got emotional talking about federal immigration enforcement as she unveils a new bill operation with ICE. 34 years after being sent to prison for a double murder, a Queens man is set to walk free after his conviction was overturned. Our Ayanna Harry was inside the courtroom. And later tonight, I'll be joined by State Senator John Liu to talk about education issues and a new bill he's behind that would allow Mayor Mamdani to disband the Charter Revision Commission created by former Mayor Adams in his final hours in office. For the best news, debate, and analysis of New York politics, join us inside City Hall. Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Friday, January 30th, 2026. I'm Bobby Kuza. In the wake of the death of 2 civilians at the hands of federal officers, Kathy Hochul wants to prevent police departments in New York from forming partnerships with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Our State House reporter Bernadette Hogan joins me now with more on tonight's top story. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Bobby. And although the governor unveiled several different anti-ICE proposals in her State of the State address earlier in January, this is a brand new proposal that the governor says is part of that reaction to those deaths in Minneapolis, but then also about what she is trying to head off here in New York.
But can we just remember we're America?
Reacting to national uproar after 2 civilian deaths in Minneapolis at the hands of federal officers. Governor Kathy Hochul wants to show New Yorkers she's listening and acting.
New Yorkers are feeling traumatized and stunned as they watch federal agents carry out unspeakable acts of violence.
Unveiling new proposals that would restrict collaboration between ICE and law enforcement agencies in a surprising show of emotion.
My God, what has happened to this country? What has happened here?
Up for re-election this year, the moderate Democrat making a show of force Friday, standing with law enforcement, including New York City's top cop.
But when federal immigration operations come into a city and generate fear, anger, unrest, local police do not get to walk away from the consequences. That makes the job harder and our communities less safe.
Promising she won't alter New York law that already allows information sharing with federal officers when it comes to criminal cases, but draws the line at civil immigration enforcement.
We've worked hard to drive down crime.
One new proposal bars what's known as 287G agreements between local jurisdictions and federal authorities. It lets police officers act as ICE agents and detain suspects in local jails. Although New York City does not have one, dozens across the state adds private homes to the governor's list of sensitive locations that ICE cannot enter without a judicial warrant.
The people in this country are not confused. They're not naive. They know the difference between public safety and public displays of force.
Most noticeably in Nassau County, under County Executive Bruce Blakeman, also her Republican opponent.
It has nothing to do with who's running for office. This is the right thing to do in this moment.
Blakeman said in a statement, quote, by banning local law enforcement partnerships with ICE, Hochul is allowing dangerous criminals to return to our neighborhoods. That ends when I'm governor.
The consequences of breaking the law in the state of New York is the Attorney General will bring action and will be taken to court for enforcement.
GOP Rensselaer County Executive Steve McLaughlin also told New York One he won't end his nearly decade-old agreement. The governor still needs the state legislature's approval, but State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins already backs an arguably stronger anti-ICE measure called New York for All.
And we'll be trying to fast-track that in the wake of what's happening around the nation, yes.
And Democratic Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie told New York One, quote, we will be discussing these proposals and hope to take action in the very near future. And a big question that I had for the governor was, when was the last time you talked to President Trump about this? A source later told me that the president and the governor talked earlier this week, but not about ICE, about Gateway Tunnel, which is another financial issue that the state is battling with, and the federal government.
And interesting that Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch was there. I mean, again, this does not really apply to New York City because we already have our own sanctuary city laws, right?
Exactly.
So what was the message from the police commissioner to that?
Right. There's no 287G agreement that the NYPD has with ICE right now. It basically, Bobby, was a show of force, kind of like how the governor put National Guard on the subways when the National Guard really cannot act as NYPD or MTA officers. They can't draw a gun, they can't enact arrests. It's really just to have the figurehead. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch also wanted to point out that the anti-ICE fervor and the protests happening is also causing trouble for her own officers, who already have to deal with a whole slew of issues that are very specific and serious to this city. And she said it promotes mistrust and distrust with the officers. Again, though, it doesn't apply to New York City, the specific laws the governor put out.
And it sounds like there could be conflict enforcing this, right? I mean, if someplace like Nassau County is cooperating with ICE, how do you, on a state level, stop them from cooperating with ICE? You could end up with some conflict.
Exactly right. Say you have Nassau or even Rensselaer County upstate saying, well, we're not ditching our agreement. We'll still have officers act in concert with ICE agents. You know, that was another question I had for the governor. She said that the Attorney General's office will go forward and sue those counties. But, you know, again, suing first boots on the ground, it's a very, we're going to have to hear more, essentially, Bobby, from the governor's office on this, on the legal end here.
Right. All right, Bernadette Hogan, thank you so much for that report. Also tonight, the Mamdani administration now says the death toll of New Yorkers who have died outdoors in the past week has risen to 13. It comes as the mayor continues to face questions about how to handle the homeless population during frigid temperatures. Our Dan Rivoli was with the mayor today, and he joins me now with more on that story. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Bobby. That update from City Hall came just earlier in the afternoon. It was hours after Mayor Mamdani gave reporters an update on those deaths that City Hall are calling outdoor deaths. And here's what we know about that. 7 of the people found dead outside believed to have succumbed to hypothermia. Also, 7 were either declared dead on scene or dead on arrival by EMS. 6 people had a history of accepting shelter services, though it's unclear if they were homeless at the time they were found. Mayor Mamdani said that none of the people who died were living in tents or encampments, and none of the people were on the city's list of about 300 people who are particularly vulnerable to the elements. Now, all of this comes as the city's medical examiner's office is investigating these deaths. That office will have the official cause of death. Still, this is bringing scrutiny to Mayor Mamdani's handling of these frigid temperatures and whether his standard homeless outreach approach is sufficient and whether he should take a tougher line on people living on the street in these deadly temperatures. For example, if he should have a stronger stance on removing people off the street against their will. So far, there have been 15 people removed from the street. Also, if he should reverse his policy on allowing homeless encampments to stand. Mayor Eric Adams had enacted a homeless sweeps policy to take away tents and encampments that homeless people were living in. Mayor Mamdani gave this update in Long Island City, Queens, at a food hall where he was announcing a settlement with some major food delivery apps on behalf of delivery workers.
Our laser focus has been on using every single tool at our city's disposal to canvass and conduct outreach of homeless New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs. And it's frankly thanks to the work of those incredible city workers who I joined one night for their shift that they've been able to make more than 600 placements into safe havens and into sites of shelter. For the New Yorkers who are deemed to be a threat to themselves or to others, there is a process of involuntary confinement, which is a last resort. However, it has been utilized a number of times whenever city workers have come to that conclusion.
Now, New Yorkers and the Mamdani administration still digging out of that major storm recently, as all that snow is now turning into ice in these temperatures. Mayor Mamdani gave an update on how the city is doing here. Let's take a look. Well over 18,000 crosswalks cleared. More than 5,000 fire hydrants cleared of snow, and nearly 13,000 bus stops cleared of snow, and that includes all bus stops with shelters. Those are pretty big numbers, but still they only represent a fraction of the thousands of crosswalks, hundreds of more and thousands of more fire hydrants that still need to be cleared of snow. So a reporter asked Mayor Mamdani what he would say to frustrated New Yorkers who are still having a very tough time moving around sidewalks, especially people in wheelchairs, people with mobility issues, seniors, and of course parents and nannies who got to push strollers over snowbanks and slushy crosswalks. Here's Mayor Mamdani responding to that.
That the work continues, and we will never be a city government that pats ourselves on the back for what has already been done. We will always ask ourselves, what more can we do? We have additional contractors, additional emergency snow shovelers, and the work, it continues until every single New Yorker, no matter their mode of transport, is able to get around the city that is theirs.
Mayor Mamdani also encouraged people, if they see anyone who needs help and needs a warm place to go, call 311, and that call will be rerouted to 911. However, Bobby, a reporter, said she had tried that, didn't have a good experience. Mayor Mamdani said he'd look into that.
All right, Dan Rivoli, thank you so much for that report. It is time now for a break. Coming up down in Washington, members of the Senate just voted to pass a funding bill with hours to spare as a partial government shutdown was looming. Stay with us. We are back in a minute.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With today's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
When you're connected with Spectrum, you get 5G and fiber-powered internet combined for the fastest wireless speeds. So you can sweat for the right reasons. It's only the seamless connection you love at home, everywhere you go. It's only everything.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s. But showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. About half an hour ago, the Senate voted to pass a bipartisan spending deal to keep most of the federal government funded. The deal also keeps the Department of Homeland Security running for another 2 weeks as negotiations continue over the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Now the budget deal will have to clear the House of Representatives before it becomes law. Spectrum News national reporter Evan Koslov joins me now from our Washington, D.C. with the details. Good evening, Evan.
Well, busy night here on Capitol Hill as the Senate, as you mentioned, did vote to fund the government. And that final vote was overwhelming. 71 to 29 was the final vote. So it was bipartisan. We have Democrats and Republicans as we do have this looming shutdown set to begin at midnight as we head into. Despite the Senate passing this, we are still heading for a weekend shutdown because the House of Representatives now needs to pass this, and they're not here. They've been on recess for the entire week. So that means we are looking at a likely brief weekend shutdown before the House of Representatives is expected to come back and vote on this on Capitol Hill next week. As soon as Monday is when that would happen. This was bipartisan, and it was a compromise. It was endorsed by President Donald Trump and the top Senate Democrat, Chuck Schumer from New York, of course. They both agreed to this and basically had two parts. Part one is that it would fund most of the government, the overwhelming majority of the government, for the full fiscal year through September. So, you know, elements like defense, health and human services, labor, all of that would be funded for the full year. And then part two would have to do with the Department of Homeland Security. And for that, this would be a stopgap measure. So 2 weeks of funding, essentially to meet these reforms that Democrats are demanding relating to immigration, because DHS is what oversees the immigration crackdown that we've been seeing across the country. Just to quickly talk about some of those demands from Democrats, you know, they've been calling for an end to the roving patrols, a new code of conduct, and a requirement that officers take down the masks and wear body cameras as well. Let's listen in to what Senator Schumer had to say before the vote. Take a listen.
If Republicans are serious about the very reasonable demands Democrats have put forward on ICE, then there is no good reason we can't come together very quickly to produce legislation.
So we should note that this was almost derailed. A Trump ally, Senator Lindsey Graham, was actually threatening to put what's called a hold on this funding. Graham being able to sue the Department of Justice over the subpoenaing of their phone records relating to the 2020 election interference case. So he was upset about that being taken out, and so he was threatening to put this hold. And he actually had some really fiery language on the Senate floor. Let's listen to that.
I've been told the White House doesn't like this. And I told the White House last night, I don't care if you like it or not. I don't work for the White House. You jam me. Speaker Johnson, I won't forget this.
So some striking words there from an ally of the president, of course. In the end, he did relent after he got some assurances about this legislation being considered in the future. So what happens next now that this cleared the Senate? It still needs approval from the House, as I mentioned, meaning we could be looking at this weekend shutdown before they come back on Monday. Of course, if it's just a weekend shutdown, the impacts will be pretty limited.
Right. So, well, Evan, that was going to be my question. I mean, if it's a partial government shutdown, but we have a pretty good idea that everything's going to be fine on Monday, that's one thing. But if it's unclear which way the House is going to break on this, and this could be a more extended shutdown, that's another story.
Yeah, I would never dare to predict what will happen here on Capitol Hill. That being said, when you have a situation where we have the endorsement from the president and the top Democrat in the Senate, that does imply that there is going to be bipartisan support there in the House as well. And so as long as they are able to get that through quickly on Monday, those of us at home will likely see pretty limited impacts from this shutdown. It should not be like what we saw last fall when it dragged on for 43 days. Hopefully that's not something we see again.
All right, Evan Kozlov in Washington, thank you so much for that report. It is time now for a break. Coming up, more than 3 decades after being sent to prison for a double murder, a Queens man is free tonight after his conviction was overturned by a judge. We'll bring you the full report next. Stay with us. We're back in a minute.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. This is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for On Stage.
On Stage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
It's only a hike. It's only made possible by Spectrum Business connecting healthcare providers of all sizes. Like hospitals relying on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network with industry-leading reliability. Practices keeping patient data safe with advanced security. Pharmacies accessing records in the cloud without fail. It's tailored connectivity solutions built for life-changing moments. It's only a hike. It's only everything. Spectrum Business.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over. Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
But then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together. It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens, watching New York One, to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood, because our city never stops moving.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories, but first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. More than 30 years after being sent to prison for a double murder, a Queens man is free tonight after his conviction was overturned by a judge who said prosecutors withheld substantial evidence in the case. Our Ayana Harry was inside the courtroom and filed this report.
After proclaiming his innocence to anyone who listened for years, New York One was inside a Queens courtroom Friday afternoon during the emotional moment. A judge told Porter his motion to have his 1995 double murder conviction overturned
is granted in its entirety.
December 30th, 1991, a man and his girlfriend were fatally shot in a parking lot of the Woodside houses. 4 months later, Porter was arrested after a witness ID'd him in a photo lineup. Porter pleaded not guilty. In 1995, he went on trial.
This is a case that everyone agrees was a week from
Deadlocked twice, but ultimately found Porter guilty. But Porter didn't give up his fight. New hope finally came last year when a new law firm took on his case.
When Alan would tell me about his innocence, he would say with such passion and almost cry, and that's rare.
Paralegal Jabbar Collins became friends with Porter while they were both in prison. After Collins was exonerated in his own murder case, he vowed to continue pushing for Porter's freedom. When Neuwirth Linehan attorneys started digging into Porter's conviction, they found prosecutors withheld key evidence for decades, like this handwritten note from a prosecutor describing other suspects, noting Al didn't do it. And the sole witness placing Porter at the scene of the crime said in this recording she was coerced into lying by detectives.
Did he tell you what you had to say?
Little bits and pieces. And he's like, you're not stupid. You can fill in the blanks.
She was terrified of the detectives and what they said to coerce her to make these statements.
In throwing out his double murder conviction, the judge said Porter's constitutional rights had been violated. And she called out prosecutors for withholding evidence.
The amount of exculpatory and impeaching evidence that occurred in this case that was withheld is nothing short of substantial and even alarming.
Porter's legal nightmare isn't over yet. After his conviction was overturned, Porter was released on a $400,000 bond, and now prosecutors are deciding whether or not to retry the case. A spokesperson for the Queens District Attorney's Office tells New York One, we are reviewing the decision. Porter's mother can't believe prosecutors might still pursue the case again.
I was told by
by my parents, if you have nothing good to say, don't say anything at all.
When he was first arrested, Alan Porter was 19 years old. Today, he is 54. During more than 3 decades in prison, Porter worked towards getting his bachelor's degree, and he's also participated in community service, including mentoring at-risk youth. Inside the Queens Criminal Courthouse, Ayanna Harry for Inside City Hall.
It is time for a break. Coming up, I will sit down with State Senator John Liu to talk about education issues and how Mayor Mamdani and the new schools chancellor are handling city public schools. Stay with us. We're back in a minute.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Perkman.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
It's only a slice. Connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network. And factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. State budget hearings continued this week in Albany, and yesterday lawmakers held a hearing about education issues as we head into budget season. Joining me now to talk more about education is State Senator John Liu. He represents parts of northeastern Queens, including, and he is the chairman of the New York City Education Committee in the State Senate. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us.
How you doing, Bobby?
I'm good. So I want to dig into education issues, but first let me ask you about some legislation you recently introduced regarding our former mayor, Eric Adams, and some last-minute moves that he did just before leaving office back in December. This legislation is called the Election-Related Requirements for Initiating Charter Commissions, or if you spell out the acronym, it is the ERIC Act.
Oh, my goodness.
Leaving no doubt as to who this legislation is directed at. So explain what this is about for us.
Okay, well, I can't believe you found that acronym to be such, but I would not say this legislation is about any individual person. This legislation closes a loophole. I don't think there was any intent by the framers of the charter or to allow an outgoing executive, in this case the mayor of New York City, to create a charter revision commission that would then override any other potential changes to the charter, whether it be by a new mayor or even the city council. So what we're doing with this bill is saying that, listen, within 60 days of a general election, there should be no new Charter Revision Commission created. Number one, it's unseemly. I mean, if you're the outgoing executive, you shouldn't be convening a new commission at that point. And number two, the way the law works right now is that it's actually nearly impossible for the new mayor to override what this commission created by his predecessor might do. And here, unfortunately, we have a pretty contentious relationship between. I hope that changes sometime soon. New Yorkers don't really need to see that with everything that's going on. But this bill that will close a loophole. And so hopefully in the future, it's not just about what's happening now, but in the future, we won't have a situation where an outgoing mayor creates a charter revision commission to tie the hands of the new mayor.
And this commission that Mayor Adams created, I mean, it was literally the 11th hour, is the last few hours in office on December 31st. Would this legislation, if passed, eliminate the current commission, the one formed by Mayor Adams, or would it only be forward-looking?
Yes. When this bill passes, it will also obviate the commission that was created on New Year's Eve by the outgoing mayor.
So let's talk education. The new schools chancellor here in New York City, Kamar Samuels, he's now been on the job only about a month. And yesterday up in Albany, he sat for about a 2-hour grilling before state lawmakers. First, let me just ask, you've seen a lot of schools chancellors come and go in your time. How does Kamar Samuels compare to some past chancellors?
All right, so you're saying that I'm pretty old. I've seen a lot of chancellors. And that's true, Bobby. It's a fair statement.
I've seen a lot of them come and go myself, to be fair.
Many chancellors. I think Kamar Samuels is a breath of fresh air. He's youthful, he's energetic, and at the same time, he's got over 20 years of experience in every single position, teacher, principal, superintendent in the Department of Education, and he has already hit the ground running as New York City Schools Chancellor. But it's not an easy job, no question. And so, you come up to Albany, you're going to face the music in many ways, both from friendly legislators as well as legislators who may not be so much in line with you. And I think he did a great job of questions, actually putting forth some new news that we hadn't heard before. And it shows that he's been thinking about what he needs to do as chancellor.
And talk about the news that he made, because I know you asked him about the the class size mandate, which is something that you spearheaded in Albany, which would require city schools to dramatically reduce class size, but at a cost of billions of dollars to the school system. And I heard him say that just to stay on target, the city would have to hire something like 6,000 new teachers next year at a cost of $600 million. So, I mean, is this really going to happen with that kind of price tag?
Well, I think there needs to be a plan to it. First of all, we needed to pass the law because it's only in New York City that classes are overcrowded. We're lowering it down to the statewide and national norms of class sizes. When there are too many kids in the classroom, the teacher can only do so much, and it shortchanges all the school kids in that classroom. So we need to bring New York City class sizes down to state and national norms. And it's not going to be free, of course not. It's going to require billions of dollars for which we already provided for in the state budget in the form of foundation aid. Foundation aid has been fully funded. And in fact, it was only fully funded that I allowed this law to be passed. Now, the problem for Mayor Mamdani and Chancellor Samuels is that the previous administration never took this requirement seriously. They never intended to reduce New York City class sizes. And so the inaction over 3 years has now left Mayor Mamdani and Chancellor Samuels with a huge task. I want to work with this new administration. I want to figure out how we can get to the end goal. We're not going to lose sight of the goalposts. We need to reduce class sizes so that all kids can get a sound basic education. To get to that, we're going to need more teachers. Mayor Mamdani, during his campaign, talked about a great way to recruit new teachers. Chancellor Samuels talked about their effort to recruit new teachers. We even talked about this issue with the state education department in an earlier part of yesterday's hearing, where the state has also rolled out a strategy and a procedure to bring more potential teachers into the pipeline. At the same time, these new teachers will also need space to teach. So it's a matter of getting more teachers, but also building more classroom space. All this certainly does require money. This is why foundation aid has been put in the state budget. And at the end of the day, the biggest responsibility of state and city government is to educate our kids. That is the bottom line. And if it costs more money, well, we've already provided the additional state funds. And now it's time for Mayor Mamdani and Chancellor Samuels to hunker down and let's come up with a plan. If they need a little bit more time, say how much more time they need. Tell us what goalposts, what milestones they are going to achieve along the way so that we can finally get to the end goal.
Let me ask you, just a couple minutes left, and let me ask you a few more questions. One is mayoral control of city schools. Mayor Mamdani, before he took office, was against mayoral control, or at least wanted to reform it. Now he's for mayoral control, and I know the governor's talking about a 4-year extension. What is the legislature going to do? Is the legislature inclined to give him 4 years?
Well, you know, I think this new mayor has been thoughtful. He wanted to do something. He certainly does want to engage more stakeholders, give more voice to the parents. At the same time, I think he understands that, you know, it's a vast system and there are lots of moving parts. So I also want to work with him on the issue of school governance in New York City. As you mentioned, Governor Hochul did propose as part of her budget package, including lots of laws and legislation, a 4-year extension of the current system of mayoral control without any changes. That is highly unlikely to actually last through the end of the budget negotiations or perhaps even survive the budget. There's no fiscal impact, so there's no real need to consider this issue as part of the state budget itself, which is due April 1st. In fact, the current system of mayoral control does not expire until June 30th. So we have a little bit more time to figure out what the best system is. But I think if you listen to Mayor Mamdani and Chancellor Samuels, especially Chancellor Samuels yesterday in his testimony, he's very thoughtful about how best to move the city system forward. And from my perspective as chair of the New York City Education Committee, I always think that it's better to have a well thought out system in place for many, many years to come, not to have renewals of whatever system every few years, because I think that's destabilizing to the school system and therefore to our school kids. So I look forward to working with Mayor Mamdani and Chancellor Samuels on all of these issues. Super important for New Yorkers.
State Senator John Liu, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks.
All right, it is time now for a break. Coming up, I will talk about the city's budget shortfall and more when I'm joined by 2 top journalists in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Stay with us.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer. As chief meteorologist at New York One, I'm honored to be able to help New Yorkers plan their day.
Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our weather on the ones. Watch the New York One weather experts with your weather on the ones on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
I moved from Dallas to Los Angeles all by myself. The order of things I wanted to set up was internet, water, then power. I needed to take a shower, but I really did need the internet for work and to watch my shows. That's kind of a crazy thing to admit in front of a camera. Pretend I didn't say that. I got to Spectrum. I was so relieved that I was getting the best bang for my buck. It was a huge weight taken off of my shoulders.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Or take advantage of our public library's offer of free access to Heated Rivalry.
Kristi Noem has forfeited her right to lead, and I'm calling on her to resign.
In the words of the Jackson 5, it's as easy as ABC. This is the Adams budget crisis. We are, however, not going to leave someone out in the cold if they're a danger to themselves or to others.
It was a revolving door. You held people for 48 hours, and they're out. With what? With what support?
The property tax system itself is a broken one. It needs to be reformed. We need to raise taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers and the most profitable corporations.
We're not raising taxes in the state of New York. I'm not raising taxes for the sake of raising taxes.
We in the city council have to figure out, well, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here is we've got to identify savings in the budget.
Everything has to be on the table, including new revenue. But I feel that before we have a strong case on tax increases, we've got to get our own fiscal house in order.
But don't expect our local law enforcement to team up with them, because we have other responsibilities for our local law enforcement.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was a look back at some of the week's top political stories, including the city's budget shortfall. Joining me now to discuss all of that and more are two top journalists in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Craig McCarthy is the City Hall bureau chief at the New York Post. And joining us for the first time is Holly Pretsky. She works as the city editor at City and State New York. Thank you both for being here. So I think the main event in our little world this week was Mamdani's press conference on Wednesday, where he talked about this budget deficit. I was a little bit surprised. I mean, we knew he was going to talk about the budget, but I wasn't expecting this full frontal assault on Eric Adams. I mean, it seemed like the news conference was as much about that as it was about, raising the alarm bells about this budget gap. What was your take on this?
Well, I think somebody had tweeted that, talking about Zoran Mamdani when he was campaigning, was saying that Adams was hiding all this money. We couldn't fund the libraries, couldn't do all these things. And now he took office and he's like, oh, he was hiding all the money we owe. We owe so much more money. I think I mean, listen, there's always going to be gaps in the out years when we talk about these things. This budget was passed unanimously by the city council. We've talked about the out years and these things, and I think the pushback we've heard is that this is kind of a similar thing that Eric Adams did, right? He used to underestimate the revenue coming in, saying we couldn't pay for certain things. And, then miraculously, all these billions of dollars get discovered when the actual revenue numbers come in. So that's kind of what a lot of us are expecting right now.
Yeah, it was very clear from that press conference what the message was. This is Eric Adams' fault. We're in a bad situation, and it's not my fault, it's my predecessor's fault. And it's really serious, and it's so serious that we're actually going to need more help from the state. And the way that we're going to fill this gap is by taxing the rich, which is something that Zoran Mamdani has wanted to do, and he's been saying he's going to do. His Democratic Socialist base, they're very passionate about this. They're passionate about income inequality and recalibrating the balance of wealth. And so he's starting to make that case. But he was short on specifics about where we're going to find savings in the budget. And he was also kind of short on specifics about why we have this.
Right. Well, and you, Craig, pressed the mayor, and as did other reporters, on what are some examples of where you can find some of these savings or efficiencies that you keep talking about. And he didn't really have any answers, except for the one example was this AI chatbot that Mayor Adams had introduced a few years ago. But that was only like $500,000,
yeah,
right? Which is nothing.
It's a paltry sum. It's like 0.004% of the gap that we have here. I mean, listen, if this is a real budget gap, that we have $12 billion, that this is going to be on the books and we can't close that gap, that is a massive recalibration of what we're spending money on. I mean, in most budgets, 90 to 92% of it is set in stone. It's pensions, it's healthcare, it's all those things are going up, it's the salaries, it's all of these things that are kind of set in stone. There's only a little wiggle room that you have to work with there. So you would have to come with some serious things there. And you have Dean Houlihan, who was brought on as this budget guru. And what has he been doing for 3 months? If this is the, this is what we have here, he stood there awkwardly silent with his budget chief as well. And it's kind of confusing of why they were even there if they were going to offer like a, hey, like DOE contracting, we need to change all these things, which has been a long-standing issue with waste, they've always said, but there was nothing.
To be fair to them, it's his first time. And so they've had to get up to speed very quickly. And he has telegraphed that.
And also, this isn't the budget presentation, right? I mean, he has a few weeks. I think this was more.
This is more like
messaging.
like setting the tone and being clear about the origin of this problem.
But I would say, but Dean Houlihan spent 8 years in City Hall prior to Eric Adams. He was under de Blasio. He was the budget person. He trained Jacques Jihad. Jacques Jihad was his mentee. So it's not like. And all these documents are public. It's not like this is like some hidden thing you get when you take over for City Hall. I mean, the controller had a report out on this, what, on the 16th? So what, it's still 12 days later, they just figured out that that was correct?
So how much of this do we cynics think might be sort of a ploy to exert some leverage against Governor Hochul?
Well, I talked to the city comptroller, Mark Levine, this week, and I was really pushing back on this $12.6 billion figure, and he's really sticking to it. He's saying that we have, especially this rental voucher program, City FEPS, has been under budgeted, that there are so many expenses that have been under accounted for. So there's a lot of knowledgeable people who are really sticking to this figure. So, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, the question was, how much is this a ploy?
Oh, right. Yeah, so there's evidence that some of this is real, but I think the picture is going to change. I think we're going to see more revenue data. The governor has indicated that. The mayor, too, even acknowledged that we're going to see some Wall Street bonus information that's going to change the revenue picture. Mark Levine also acknowledged that. So I think it's going to change a little. And we'll see also how the tune changes after the state budget is finalized April 1st.
I mean, this doesn't, notably, like, these projections that they're looking at does not include the end of the year revenue. And that's what always happens. Every year they're saying, oh, we might have this, we might have this. I mean, we're not including the full picture. And I think that's why people in the state are pushing back about this, because they collect all of our taxes and they kind of know what's going on here. They know what the Wall Street bonuses are going to be. I think that number will definitely dwindle.
All right, a lot more to talk about, but we got to take a quick break. I will have more with these reporters in just 2 minutes. Stay with us.
We have so many ways to stay connected. A single touch can bring us closer to the families we love, the friends we know, and the city we share. And Spectrum helps us keep connected throughout the day, every day. Including more ways to watch New York One as a Spectrum Internet customer. Watch Spectrum News New York One on the Spectrum News app, available on all your favorite devices.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on 1, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. I'm once again joined by my reporters roundtable, Holly Pretsky and Craig McCarthy. So staying with the state budget gap, Holly, we know that the mayor wants to raise taxes on the rich. We know that Kathy Hochul has been adamant that she will not raise taxes on the rich. So where is this headed? Are they on a collision course?
Maybe. The governor gave the mayor this really big victory in his first week in office. She had this big press conference with him to announce that, yes, they are starting to expand childcare throughout the whole state, but especially in New York City. This was a huge campaign promise for the mayor. She had the power to make it happen, and she did, like, right away as soon as he got into office. And then to have a couple weeks later a big press conference where we're talking about how much more money New York City needs from the state when she's been very clear that she's not going to tax the rich. I could see where that might cause a little bit of tension. I think Craig has been reporting on this too.
Well, I think, listen, we all know Kathy Hochul does not like to negotiate these things in public. She said we're in Puerto Rico, they were doing tax the rich, and she stopped and said, this is not how I operate. You push me more, I'm not going to do it.
When people were chanting at her
exactly,
when she was giving a speech. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, I mean, listen, doing this and pushing the governor, who again has given you a massive win within the first few weeks, to then turn around and do the tax reduction, which she's saying she has not wanted to do. She is in an election year. She is going up against Bruce Blakeman. She might have a tough race ahead of her. And on an election year to raise taxes, that's asking a lot of a governor.
And she's saying our outlook is good, that there is the revenue at the state level and that there are these surpluses. So she can't really justify, I think she's saying she can't really justify increasing taxes in a year like that.
Let me ask you guys about the storm response. It seemed like initially after the storm last weekend, the mayor and the sanitation department got pretty good marks for getting through the storm. But now, you know, we've had this frigid cold settle over the city. There have been deaths in the street. And then, you know, I feel like there's more scrutiny now on the mayor and how he has handled the cleanup, clearing bus stops and so on. So what kind of grade are we giving the mayor at this point?
I think he's done a pretty good job. I think he did a really good job during the storm, the communication, the just over-communicating with New Yorkers about what to expect. And I think a lot of people really appreciated that. He was up at 6 in the morning with the sanitation workers during their shift change. He was everywhere that day. He was shoveling. I think he did a really good job. I think he got high marks for during the storm. After the storm, it's been really challenging. We've had this like historic string of days of freezing cold weather. So I think that would be challenging for any mayor. It's really unusual. So that also means that a lot of our bike lanes are blocked, our bus lanes are blocked, and our bus stops are hard to access. So pedestrians are having a hard time. He acknowledged that. I went to his press conference today and he said, I understand the frustration if you have a stroller. I understand if you're, you know, disabled. This is tough and we're really working on it. But I think it's just a challenging circumstance.
Well, and then there's the question of whether you can draw a line between, you know, his policy on homeless encampments, for instance, and the fact that we have had, you know, all these deaths of people who are in the street.
Yeah, I mean, listen, any mayor, we go back to de Blasio, Bloomberg, all mayors had trouble getting homeless people off the streets. There is a reticence to go into shelters. They don't feel safe there. I was speaking to one legitimately right outside City Hall that Manzali could see from his window, and he refuses to go into one. I talked to him multiple times. I tried to convince him to go into one. But the thing is, too, is that, you know, the not breaking down encampments and the concern becomes is that you make them feel comfortable to sleep outside, and to a point where it's not safe at all. I mean, you can go to sleep and you can be bundled, you can have your hat on, have your gloves on, have a blanket, and still die by being in a structure like that. So, and notably, none of these were encampments at this point, but, you know, being able to get these people on the street, I think, like, he's been against involuntary removals. And I think we've seen that language shift a bit over the last week,
yeah,
understanding
he's been more open to that.
We're understanding if somebody is not wearing pants or wearing socks or whatever, that they cannot care for themselves, which was Eric Adams and Governor Kathy Hochul, who did this change to the city and state kind of guidance on this, so you could do those involuntary removals.
Just in our last couple of minutes, I wanted to ask you about Governor Hochul's news conference today, and this, this new policy limiting cooperation of local law enforcement with ICE, which, up until this point, I feel like the response from New York to the events in Minnesota was somewhat muted, but now with this new policy she announced today, I guess it reflects public opinion to some degree, this backlash against ICE after what we saw happen in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think you're seeing that across the country. Big demonstrations today in New York City and elsewhere. Just outrage after Alex Preddy was shot by federal agents in Minneapolis. And yeah, I think you're seeing the governor notice that. And she today announced that she was going to stop 287G agreements between New York municipalities and ICE. So those are agreements that allow coordination and allow ICE to deputize officers from local police departments. So Hochul's, one of her campaign, her rivals for governor, Republican Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, has been very open about allowing ICE to keep people in Nassau County jails, allow local law enforcement to be involved with, and this isn't criminal enforcement, this is civil enforcement. So these people haven't committed a crime, they're just undocumented. That's what Hochul wants to stop. So it's an interesting moment of her, on the political side, it's interesting to see her noting, as you said, this public opinion shift and all this backlash, and then announcing this policy today. And then shortly after that, releasing an ad that really highlights Bruce Blakeman's praise of ICE.
Yeah. And I think, too, that goes into what Kathy Hochul has been trying to do, right, with embracing Zohran Mamdani during the election, kind of moving to the left, doing universal child care, giving him a win, working with him for all these things, and trying to coalesce and kind of pull the left together. Yeah. And she couldn't have ignored this because the left was talking about it too much. I mean, there was the ICE, there's DSA had all the boycotts of businesses and shut all the businesses down today for ICE protests. I mean, this is reverberating through the left, and you're right, it's taken a while to kind of get to New York, but I think New York, between Zohran Mamdani and Kathy Hochul, they're not really aggressively attacking the Trump administration as much as you see in other states, and notably, our state has largely been left alone.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. Craig McCarthy, Holly Pretsky, thank you guys so much for joining us, and that is going to have to do it for tonight's show. Stay tuned for another episode of our weekly national political show, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, at 9 o'clock tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great weekend. We will see you the next time on Inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You've done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
You might think Spectrum is just for your home, but Spectrum is seamless connectivity everywhere. It's the network making the other networks sweat. Connectivity from an actual internet company, because internet is what you actually use your phone for. It's way more than 5G. With powered internet, seamlessly combined for the fastest wireless speeds. Don't believe us? Ask this guy. He's one of millions who already know. Oh yeah, and this guy too. Turns out people like their mobile from a seamless connectivity company. That's why Spectrum is the country's fastest growing mobile provider. Spectrum One. It's only the seamless connection you love at home. Everywhere you go. It's only everything.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every